Yeah, what's up with it? Do it cause I love it and I stuck with it. We ain't with the subbing in the cut with it. Please, none of the talks, I heard enough of it. Like, what you gonna do? Where you at? Who you with? You ain't really about this, don't talk about it. Really on the move, on the map, never slip. Keep your hands to your lips, don't talk about it. Real eyes, real lies all the time. Stand on it, if we said it, we don't walk around it. Loose lips, ain't ships, red cup, blue strips, new phone, who this? No, we don't allow it. Really on go, I don't know what's an off day. Now we on road, came from smoking in the hallway. Now we got shows, boys feeling like Broadway. Always look both ways, even on a crossway. Driving down Cross Bay, out town Barclays. Really on big things, came up a small way. Championship rings, baby, that's a ball game. Oh, she want a little bag, baby, that's small change. Yeah, that money talk. If we ain't cool, then cut me off. No breaking news, don't run your mouth. Thought it was the plug, now he running off. Thought it was a plug, now he running off. What you gonna do? Where you at? Who you with? You ain't really about this, don't talk about it. Really on the move, on the map, never slip. Keep your hands to your lips, don't talk about it. Real eyes, real lies all the time. Stand on.
Hey guys, welcome to Real Talk with the Men. You already know what's happening tonight. It's Thursday. And honey, on the 5F's to Love Network, we go live with the men. So tonight is an interesting conversation. There was this big thing on social media and also this big conversation behind the scenes with these women forums. And they had a conversation about being submissive. So I said, okay, let me pose this to the guys. Can a man be submissive to a woman? Now, you guys know I have my views, but let's hear from the guys what their views are. All right, so let me bring the beat in. You know, we got Chicago. We got Gaylon. Gaylon, you know what? I'm going to tell you. I watched your show last night, and I just want to say to you, your show was watched by quite a few people because people were telling me today, as a matter of fact, I was at this event where I was speaking, and they said, I caught it on LinkedIn. And this Gaylon guy, he's amazing. I said, well, he's on every Wednesday. You can check him out. So we're finding out that people are actually watching on LinkedIn, when I'm really excited about that. And it was a new viewer. So I'm really excited about that. So thank you so much. It was a great lesson. I can't wait to our next one because, you know, I learn as I'm on and then I rewatch it. So I had to watch it again and I learned. So you guys know Michigan in the house. What's going on, RJ? RJ, why you always look like you coming from Hawaii or something with these shirts? That's what I need to know. What's up with that? You know what I'm saying?
That's my flyness. That's it. That's all I can say.
Is that what it is? Called your flyness? Okay. And you guys already know Tennessee in the house. What's going on, Tim? Good guy.
What's good, fellas? What's up, RJ? What's up, Rhea? How you doing?
Hey.
So, you know, tonight is a hot topic. And I think it's a hot topic in a sense that a lot of people, you know, men and women, and we talked about this before, it could be different definitions or understanding of a thing called submissiveness, but, you know, it's different views too, in a sense of how people look at it. So this is going to be very interesting. So before we get going, I want to say, Chantel, thanks so much for joining in. She says, hello, everyone. Hey, Tim.
Hello.
So folks, you know, this is going to be, our time always goes so fast. So I'm not going to even go to a quick commercial break. I'm going to wait because we got to get it in right away and get this started. Okay, so the first question I have for you guys is, how aware did you form your ideas and definition around submission? And RJ, I'll start with you.
Well, for me, my grandfather was a pastor, so growing up in the church, I kind of was exposed to that, but it was more the wife submitting to the man and the husband versus, you know, what the topic of our show is on tonight. So that's kind of where it came from for me.
Okay, but in that definition or understanding, him being a minister, he communicated what?
Well, I mean, you know, that it should be a two-way street. As the wife submits to the man submits to the wife in the vision of the wife, you know, submitting herself to her husband as the head of household and the head of the family, and the husband submitted himself to the wife because he's similar to that of Christ. So that's kind of how he communicated it to me and was my understanding at that time, and it's kind of evolved, I guess, over the years as me becoming an adult man. So
you kind of put your own spin on it? I
absolutely have. I think for me, you know, submission in a marriage or a committed relationship is more about selflessness, accountability, respect, and love for your partner. So.
Okay, I like that, how you put your own spin on it. So Tim, good guy, what's going on with you? What's your thoughts behind that?
It's all good. My thoughts are this is just my opinions since the beginning of time, and without getting all biblical, because I know Rev can do it better than me. But woman was here to compliment man and aid him on the journey of life. In the beginning, it wasn't woman and a man; it was man. And I think that a lot of people get it confused when they say submissive. Like they mean a lot of high-strung women would take that as meaning bowing down. It doesn't really mean submissive and bowing down to the man or nothing like that. It's just that each member of the household has a role to play, and just so happens the man is the head of the household. And what's saying that is, like I said, is a lot of people get the submissive confused with being the boss or over somebody. But when you're a team in one unit, it's all the same. The same as if I bring home the bacon you fried in the pan. I mean, everybody has a role in the unit to make it work. And submissive is just meaning that you are there to compliment me and to be my rib on the journey of life.
Okay.
Now, Rev can break it down better than me and put it
in. He will.
Now, well, I have different perspectives than maybe some of the average ministers, Tim. If we talk about where do we form versus where we are, I got sometimes what I would call great examples, and then sometimes from some family members, not so great examples. For example, my maternal grandparents, my grandfather was quiet and soft-spoken, but when he put his foot down, everybody kind of lined up. Outside of that, he didn't really care what needed to be done and how it needed to be done. It's like you said, as long as there was the roles that they had were played, it didn't really make a difference. But when I can remember, as a kid, sometimes, my grandmother would be stirring it up and it would just be too much noise in the house. And he was like, hush. And me, my mom, my sister and I, we were like, okay, that's the end of that. Like, it was no talking. At the same time, I saw some guys really abuse that role. I won't say who, some family members who I felt as though, and friends of family who I felt as though were, they ruined a lot of good women. I'll just put it that way. They ruined them. Of course, the woman was an active participant in their ruining, but neither here nor there. That's what happened. As far as my perspective, based upon the dynamics of Bible, because of how I read things, one, I'm just going to be very forthright. I don't teach nor believe that the Adam and Eve story is literal. I think that's allegory. I think that's metaphor. Great story to explain certain things. And in biblical days, women were property. So when you start talking when guys or people in general, and sometimes even women, start having conversations about biblical roles, sometimes they don't understand that literally the man as the head of the house at that time meant that you owned the women that were a part of your life. That's why in marriage, a woman, the daughter was given away, not given literally, sold. Who gives this woman away? That had to happen because of the rules of the culture. So when I put all of that stuff together, saying, okay, well, what makes sense now with the modern dynamic? Okay? And for me, to go back to what Tim had said earlier, understanding the roles that people play and figuring out what is constructive, what is harmonious, what's in divine order, and what puts us in a position that allows that man to be a man and that woman to be a woman without necessarily devaluing any aspect of who they are, and then yet still enhancing and supporting that which makes them shine in the relationship. And that's going to sometimes look different for other people. So I don't really like the word submit, to be honest. I don't really like the word submission, just because I feel as though that the lack of biblical literacy, even within the church, can be very difficult, because if you don't start the conversation off with, well, in biblical days, women were property. If you don't start there, then scripture can be taken out of context, and people are sick of people using the Bible to beat people upside the head with it. And that's one of the things that can be sometimes challenging, because I don't think people mean anything. Most people don't mean anything bad by it. But what ends up happening is, if a woman marries it, let me just say it very clearly, a clear idiot.
Not an idiot.
Okay, a clear idiot. and we all have bumped into our share of idiots, male and female. Let's just be honest. Yeah. And she knows how to deal with the business better, deal with the money better, knows how to out income, earn whatever. She just has to do. He's the final say, period.
Right.
Versus teamwork makes the dream work. And I understand it's like, well, in a corporation, there has to be one head. In the government, there has to be one head. And I get all of that. But what that can create is that type of opinion can erode the relationship, because biblical culture also comes out of monarchy culture. In other words, there's a king, there's a structure in that kingdom that is different than how we view free beings now. So that's a lot of conversation. I didn't mean to go that long. I said,
that was great context, and I'm telling you, I appreciate it.
So I'm saying all of that to say, when it comes to religion, whether it's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, or anybody else's religion, it's funny to me how people like to pick and choose that which they like to pull out of scripture to support what they want to support, and they leave the other stuff alone. I'm pretty sure the sweatshirt I have is made out of more than one material, which is an abomination in the Bible. In Leviticus, it's like literally, somebody on here is probably within the last 30 days eating some level of shrimp or crab or some type of shellfish, which is not allowed in the book of Leviticus. I can go on. My point is, people tend to like, okay, let me laser beam focus on this without looking at context, without looking at culture, and asking the most important question that anybody should be asking if they're going to use religion to create the structure of their family life.
Gaylon, thank you. Keep going.
What did the scripture mean then? What can it mean now? And how can we best implement this if it is something we still say yes to, which I know might be sacrilegious to some people, into our modern culture and era, because we don't want to dismiss the wisdom of the past.
Right.
But we don't want it to be a noose around our necks, because if that's the case, then slaves obey your masters.
See, right, and I'm gonna tell you right now, Gaylon, we could just stop the show right now. It's 8:14.
I'm not trying to have it be that deep.
I just know what I'm saying. What you said is what is the reason why. And I know men always say, "Well, Christine, no, I don't think the submissive thing is a requirement in a relationship, and it's for two reasons." And that's why I say you really need to look at who you're talking to and how that person is processing it. My biological father took submissiveness to the fact that my mother and the children were slaves to him. And we had to abide by his rules, to the point that if you did anything wrong, you got beat down. So when somebody says submissive to me, I reflect to that like, no, because when my mom married my dad who raised me, they did it as a partnership. There was no talking down to anybody. There were no beat downs. None of this stuff happened. So you got to understand, when you say submissive to me, I've reflected to the first set of my life. And I'm like, I'm not going through that. I don't believe in that. I don't believe I'm owned. I take it back to slave trade years, because I just had this conversation, to the plantation. You don't own me.
But
so
a lot
why
of
would I
people
have to
just
be
don't
submissive?
understand the text of how you use submissive in. Submissive can be used.
No. It's not me understanding the text. Is the man that's saying be submissive understand the text of?
I'm just saying different people have different meaning. My ideal of submissive agrees along the same lines as your ideal of submissive.
Oh no, and
that's why I said
I
doesn't mean you're the boss. So how does Ray J got his picture looking like he's in portrait mode? You said it doesn't have to. How'd you do that?
RJ,
making the background blur.
Tim, good guy. Can we not be all over the place right now? And since you did that, let me break the comments from everybody. Jenny said, "Howdy, y'all." She said, "Hey, good guy."
What's
Matt,
up?
really? Now you're gonna chime in when you at your anniversary? He said, "Hot topic." And then we also have Stephanie Clemens. She said, "Hey, Miss Lady." Hey, Stephanie. And then Antoinette, this is my homegirl from middle school. Thank you so much for Antoinette for supporting me. I love it. She said, "Gaylon, you know you are kicking the knowledge." Calvin, thank you, Calvin from Chicago. He said, "Rev, you are preaching." And Calvin, he's in Chicago, okay? Christ Universal Temple. You can see him every Sunday live and in color. Okay. Chantel, thank you so much. She said, "I agree, Rev. You have a good point." See, the thing is, everything you guys are saying is valid, but a lot of men are using the biblical sense of submissive literally when, to Rev's point, if you're with a partner or mate who has all these things that they're really great at, but then they have to come to you for approval, what kind of infrastructure is that? Like, right in the relationship, there's not a clear dynamic of just us doing it together. And that's where I think, I don't know, should we keep saying the word submissive or should we just let it go?
Well, let me do now my in defense of at least the Judeo-Christian context.
The Judeos?
Judeo-Christian. That's just your Judeo-Christian context. Because of the property dynamic of what we would call Old Testament law, the Torah, the Pentateuch, whatever, Old Testament law. We'll just call it that for this show. Women could be divorced almost for anything. Men would get mad about you couldn't have a baby. You had all these girls, you didn't give me a boy. You looked at the guy the wrong way. And they would be dismissed. So Jesus and the Christians come along, and you'll see in, like, for instance, Matthew, Jesus tells people not to get divorced. And in modern days, we would say, man, that is exceptionally suppressive to a woman. But in Jesus's first century Galilee, that was actually empowering to a woman because a man just couldn't discard her. It's different context.
That is a different context.
You don't know the context. You can look at something and a woman can read that. See, this is what I'm talking about, this Christianity stuff. And I realize that was put in place to protect women. All right. And then with the submission part, people say, well, you should submit. But it's with that scripture that people quote from Ephesians actually starts with that the man should submit to Christ. That's the first part.
That part. Gaylon, they skipped that part.
So
I said that initially. No, I didn't.
Yeah, no, RJ.
No, not you, RJ, not you. Just men in Germany.
RJ was trained properly.
Right. You were in the church. You were in the church house, and Tim has already said he's in the partnerships. But the thing is, a lot of men don't come at it that way. So, guys, we'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Like
Let them talk. I've talked enough for the whole show.
But no, I mean, all I gotta say is we could have stopped right there, Rev, because you just kind of. You level set it. It was great. So, guys, we'll be right back. Stay right here. We'll be back in 2 and 2.
My name is Christine Burkett, the inventor of the 5 F's to Love. This is a compatibility app. It's an app that gives you an opportunity to rate words that start with the letter F in chronological order of importance to you, to help you find your one true love, your soulmate, and the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. So after you've taken the time to rate your F's in chronological order, you send a link to the person, you just met, or the person you've been dating for quite some time. Or maybe it's the person you've been married to for 30 to 40 to 50 years. And then you compare your top 5 F's to find out what things you have in common and things that you may perhaps need to work on. This is taking a simplistic perspective on how to find your one true love, your soulmate, the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. And thank you for downloading the 5Fs app.
Hey guys, welcome back. We're live. This is Real Talk with the Men on the 5Fs to Love Network. Tonight we're talking about, can men be submissive to women? You guys have to know I make up those topics really just to catch your attention. It's not even about submissiveness. It's about gaining a better understanding about what that looks like in a relationship. And the best way to get, your point across that it's not really about being submissive. It's really about us respecting and loving one another in that relationship, right? Because to me, I just want to love somebody with no limits. So my next question for you guys is submission. And that's what you're getting ready to talk about, RJ. So it's right on point. Is submission required, or is there another way to have a healthy relationship? So there you go.
Perfect. So
that's a nice intro.
It is. I believe we have there's a lot of the contentiousness around this topic with men and women is based on your perspective on it, is subjective, and also how you were raised. Like, what did you see growing up, right? So in some households, you had two parents that where the father probably worked hard, paid all the bills, and the mother may have worked and she didn't contribute to the bills, but she cooked and cleaned, or it could have been vice versa. And you have some of us that were raised in single parent households, so they don't know about the dynamics of a relationship in that capacity of submission. So is submission required? Not in the sense of how people use it today, because I agree with the Reverend said. There are a lot of men will try to use the old ways in the Bible to apply to current day, and it doesn't work, because we have a lot of women similar to yourself who are very independent and strong-minded and strong-willed, right? And so with that, we have to understand what makes a healthy relationship. Healthy relationship is consistent and effective communication with understanding, right? I'll say that again: consistent and effective communication with understanding. Because you communicate with someone all day, but if they don't understand what you're saying, then it's irrelevant, right? So that's why we have a lot of arguments and disagreements in relationships, and then there becomes frustration and stress, and then people start cheating and all this. And I've been telling you how I feel. Well, I never understood exactly how you feel, because all you're doing is talking to me and at me, and I'm not hearing you and understanding. So if there's a culmination of things that attribute, to this healthy relationship we speak of, I believe submission, again, is all about just each other being selfless, being respectful, being understanding, and loving each other, right? And being compromising, right? Because it has to be a team effort. If you're in a relationship, it has to be a team effort. And to what Tim said in the beginning, it's about the roles we play. I may be better at certain things, so I'm going to effectively do those things. You may be better at certain things, so you're going to effectively do those things, and we're going to rely on each other to do those consistently and effectively so that we can flourish as a team. And it's really, for me, it should be that simple, but we as human beings often complicate things because we overthink, or we don't effectively express what we feel in the moment or effectively communicate.
I like that. And I think healthy relationships, and thank you for saying that. I think a lot of times we get in these relationships and people don't understand is doing those things that you don't want to do, right? A lot of times, my grandmother used to say to my grandfather, I remember growing up, she used to call upstairs and say, it's Wheel of Fortune time. And he was like, he did not want to do no Wheel of Fortune. But to her, that was like, we got to do this together. And then she would set up the TV trays and put the dinner on it. They sitting there watching Wheel of Fortune because that's what and guess what? For over 40 years, he did Wheel of Fortune. But I knew as a little kid, because he looked down at me, he said, I don't want to watch no Wheel of Fortune. So I knew that as a little kid, but to me, to watch him do that, he selfishly just did it because that's what she wanted to do. Now, mind you, what he didn't know is she didn't like watching baseball games, but she did it. You know what I'm saying? So it's those little things that people don't understand that makes you more vulnerable to that person, more willing to do the things that fall under being submissive, if you want to call it, because that person is like a give and take situation. So Tim, what's your spill on it?
I'm lost. Like I said, submissive to me is just a word. I think people tend to overthink everything and try to dissect words, and everybody's got the right to their own opinion, and their own beliefs. That's what's going to ultimately come down to at the end of the day is what your beliefs is, and depends on how you've been brought up. If you've been brought up seeing your mom and your mom and her mom cut the end off of a ham, before they bake it, which has no damn reason in the world to be wasted. Get a ham, cutting the end off a ham. So you just grow accustomed to seeing things over the years for no rhyme or reason. People will follow these things unconsciously. They would just naturally do that. And I feel that people put too much stock in just words and trying to define them. And everybody has their own way of thinking and their own ways of belief. Like Rev said, some people just damn idiots. I mean, but my cousin Ricky told me a long time ago, because I used to be a real hothead, and I would get all upset because how somebody else would think. He told me that, Tim, you can't get mad because these people don't think like you. Because I couldn't figure out what it was so hard to think about. I thought it was some really basic shit. I mean, to think that way. But I would let it upset me because he wouldn't think like I did. And I just thought you're just too big of an idiot not to think that way. And at the end of the day, that's what it's gonna come down to. Somebody else thinking, and that's why we all have our own head and our own way of thinking. I just know when you start thinking that dumb shit, I'm gonna go that way. That's the only thing I know.
Tim, this is what makes me crack up. You always putting that Southern spin on something. Where do we get to cutting the end off the ham?
People I was just giving you an example. I'm just giving you an example of people.
I love it.
People come in and buy cars today. I'm in the car business. Come in and buy cars, and they buy them. They think that the market is still like when their grandparent was coming in. Cash is king. Cash is not faster than one click on the button and transferring it to the bank account. You can't count cash that fast. So these old ways of thinking that you don't watch these people that you grew up around are not gonna work in this day and time. You know, with the internet, everything's faster and everything's out there. So if you really don't have your best ball forward, then you're not going to get that play. People are going to go to the first best option that they deem is best by their logic of thinking. And their logic of thinking could come from somebody who doesn't have a clue of what's going on. I just said today, the internet is just full of followers following followers, like a dog chasing the tail around it. So you follow somebody who don't know where they go at, just because somebody done said it 3 or 4 times on the internet. So it's supposed to be the Ray of the gospel truth. It's not the gospel truth.
Well, you know? The blind follow the blind.
And it's all the time, because if you ask them, okay, so where'd you get that from? Where'd you get that definition of submissive from? Where'd you get this definition from? I mean, did you look it up in the dictionary? I mean, what's your basis behind your level of thinking of these things that you're coming up with? And like I said, and some people are never going to get it. You could write it down. It could be in the red letters. It could be whatever you want. And some people are still not going to get it because their level of train of thinking has been programmed one way, and that's their belief. And I really won't waste a lot of time trying to convince them.
No. Do you think that, from you guys' perspective, when you think about how men and women use that term submissive, prospectively, do you think people do it to their advantage? Do you think they use it to control or manipulate situations, men and women?
I think some do. Both sides of the fence. I think
both sides of the fence. I mean, it could be easily used against a man in that role if that guy is not handling his business in the way the woman thinks it should be handled.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so can we, that's where the direction I'm going in, because I want women to understand the word submissive is not just about a man gaining control, that some women can use it to gain control. And what does that look like when a woman flips it?
I mean, it depends on how a woman flips it, because I just want to win. If my woman, you know, I'm more hood, more street or whatever. If my woman can go in there and make it happen, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to be quiet and get the bag or accomplish whatever our goal is, because I just ultimately want to win. I want us to win as a team. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So, like I said, that goes back to the role playing right there, whatever. If you're more capable of driving at that time, you take the wheel. I don't care, as long as we get there at the same time, in the same place. It really doesn't matter to me. But if you get to BSing, I'm going to grab that wheel. That's all I know. I'm going to give you a little bit of time, and you say that one more time, I'm grabbing the wheel.
Why do you make me laugh? I try to be serious.
I'm grabbing the wheel. I'm going to give you an opportunity to do it and hope that you do it right, but I don't want to have to grab it, but I'm going to do it. That's just how I am.
You know what, Tim, you're now.
It's some women. I mean, I'm not going to be the smartest person in the world and all that. That's not going to be my role. But I'm going to compliment myself with a woman, and even Reb and RJ, the people and you, Christine, the people I surround myself around. they're gonna make me better. I don't have to know the scripture and all this stuff. I know Rev, if I need to talk to him about scripture. I know RJ if I want to go about some wine or something right there. I know you, Christine. So I surround myself around a better class of people that makes me ultimately better. So I'm not gonna sit up there just because I feel like I gotta say something in a conversation when I don't have nothing to say in a conversation.
Well, that's incredible, but you're in the minority, because what that is indicative of is that you remove your ego. The problem with a lot of men is the ego, right? Most of us men have the pride in the ego, so it's difficult for a lot of men to take that passenger seat for their woman to drive, right? Or their wife to drive, or whatever, right? For the greater good of the team, right? So what you're saying is phenomenal, but the reality in this world is that the majority don't think that way, or don't want to think that way, because the man doesn't want to feel, he doesn't want to feel belittled or beneath or less than, right? And I'm sure the Reverend can speak more to that, because he sees this more often, I'm sure, throughout the counseling and the preaching that he does, but I see it as well. So it's a difficult thing, but at the end of the day, if you're a team, you should want the team to win by any means necessary.
You know, a lot of people would rather be famous than rich, but I'm just not one of them.
Yeah.
I'd rather be rich. Just give me the money. You can stand out there on stage. You can be the front of the picture. Just make sure when it's time to count up, mine's right.
Well, you know, one of the things, besides being a huge Michael Jordan fan, I'm a big Kobe Bryant fan. I love
Me and Kobe are birthday twins. I love Kobe.
Yeah, and I remember watching an interview years ago where Kobe was on one of those hot streaks. Shaq was out injured, and Kobe was scoring 40 points every game. And
points for 23 nights straight.
Yeah, and what ended up happening was Shaq came back, and Kobe was still doing what he was doing. So Shaq wasn't touching the ball. Phil Jackson comes and pulls Kobe aside and said, "Hey, I know you in your zone, but we're isolating the big man right now. And when we get to the playoffs, we need Shaq's mindset in the right way. So I need you to step back a little bit, feed the big man." And Kobe, it was very, very hard for Kobe to slow it down. But in the big picture, he realized what is best, as you two guys have said, for the team to win. Their goal is to win a championship. So maybe Kobe at 90% throttle versus 100% throttle would still allow the rest of the team to do what it needed to do, specifically Shaq, allowed them to win 3 championships in a row, which wouldn't have happened if it was like Kobe was like, "No, I'm competing with Jordan. I'm going to get these stats versus I'm here to win championships."
Yeah, the best player on the losing team really don't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes people want to be the best player on a team that's going nowhere.
Yep.
All right. So what ends up happening, and this is with men and women, because sometimes I think people think this is a male thing versus a male energy thing. When people are diminished in one aspect of their life, they try to be dominant with the people they can be.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So whether it's spouse, husband, wife, children, siblings, friend circle, now they want to exert dominance and create a hierarchy in those relationships, because in their regular life, okay, it's not so much. In the church world, and please, for anybody that's out there, understand, I've worked in the church world for almost 30 years. I am as pro-church as anybody on the planet. Yeah. Therefore, I can talk about them because it's my family. One of the things that we joke about is how the guy who you know is the lowest on the totem pole at the job, is the big deacon, the preacher, the armor guard, or whoever, whatever, the board, president of the board, when they walk into the church setting. That's necessary and good. I don't think that's a bad thing, by the way. You know, clean yourself up, put your suit on, show, etc. That's great when it stays at that level. But when that becomes an ego trip, now it's a problem. So what I would just like to just bring to the conversation is a different way of looking at submission, since Christine just don't want to get rid of the word, is to submit to the idea of what it means to be a couple that wins.
Say that again, Brad. Say that one more time.
Submit to the idea. Because if you submit to the idea to be a couple that wins, yes, you will catch your mouth when you want to say something that you shouldn't be saying.
Right. Exactly.
Yes, you won't do something that you know that could potentially compromise the relationship.
Right.
Yes, you will seek to bring the best version of yourself to the table. All right. Yes, you will communicate properly. Why? Because you're part of a team that's winning. So when you submit to the idea, all right, now you have a conversation around, we can't have huge egos when the goal is to win. So I can be right, or we can win.
And all of that is selfless.
I like that.
All selflessness.
And that's great, RJ. Before we go to commercial break, let me knock out some of these messages. Antoinette Johnson, and thanks Antoinette for watching us from Texas. She said, being submissive to me means I trust you to make decisions for us and our family. It doesn't mean you own me and I have to do everything you say. Chanel P said, LOL, Tim. Antoinette also said, I know that's right, Tim. Chanel P, he said, LOL. All right, because she's doing a shout out on Tim, LOL. At Tim, they doing a little hashtag for you, Tim. They getting your hashtag. That's teamwork and make the dream work, baby. Right. And Jenny P said that's nice when Rev was speaking. And Gerald from 60s and New 40, he said good conversation. Folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back in 2 and 2. We'll be right back after this quick message.
My business. 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 My business.
I'm going out my mind. Give me some directions to get to you. To get to you, ain't gonna waste my time. I know that we got connection. I think about you. You're on my mind. On my mind. On my mind. Yeah, I'm going out of my mind. Out of my mind. Out of my mind. Yeah. For you, my love. You drive me crazy, tell me what to do, what to do. I'm on my knees, yeah, I am begging you, begging you. I'll break the rules if it will get me to, yeah.
Hey guys, welcome back to the 5 F's to Love podcast network. Tonight we have Real Talk with the Men. So I'm really excited about this conversation because I feel like it's one that we probably should have had a long time ago. Because of the different dynamics and relationships, people have begun to misconstrue this whole thing about submission. And in the conversation, if you didn't catch the first half, is that you need to look at the biblical terms in the space that it was written in, right? And then you need to kind of look at where you are right now. And does it truly apply? Because in the original text of which it was written was ownership. So if we're no longer talking about ownership, then what are we talking about, right? And so we need to look at whether or not this is a team event called marriage. This is a team event, or this is basically a dictatorship. I don't know. Then submissive might apply. But folks, understand this too. Submissiveness actually goes both ways. It's not just a man talking to a woman. There's some relationships where it's the opposite. It's the woman who's asking the man to be submissive. In my world, I don't think any of that applies. I believe in a partnership trip because I think together we all win, right? And that's the only way we can do this. So, folks, this has been a great conversation. So now I'm going to ask you guys like a question that's related to Black women, because this is like a real conversation. Don't pull up your seat, RJ, like that on me.
I know something's coming. I know something's coming.
RJ's like, why is she throwing landmines in front of us?
A landmine, boom.
Y'all know,
Some
Christine.
Black women feel that Black men steps up his game when he is with a woman of another race. And they feel that that falls under submissive. They feel like a Black man is being submissive to a woman, but it is not a Black woman. What do you guys think about that?
I don't think this is a Black man conversation, to be honest.
Hmm.
Black men, when they get together, nobody says,
We're not sitting around in the barbershop talking about this one. I can assure you.
yeah, like this. I'm trying to even like remember a time where I said to myself or to another guy, or a guy said to me, man, you know, you went to that other guy with that woman of another race and look at him submitting to her and her way of being. This might be a Black woman conversation, so I don't want to value.
I don't think that really has anything to do with anything. I think it's just different people are different people. I think Black women tend to sometimes, this is just my opinion, so nobody get it twisted. I think sometimes Black women tend to think that the Black man has an obligation to just be with a specific Black woman or something like that. And at the end of the day, it's all about who makes you happy and makes you feel a certain way. Because I think that a white woman, a Black woman with a white man, that doesn't mean she's being submissive to him just because he's white or color has anything to do with it. I think a lot of times you'll find the average woman who has that attitude that says something like that is in her own feelings, in her own opinion, and her own logic of thinking. I think if you take 10 women, all of them not going to agree. All of them not going to agree with that unless it's just some kind of drama thing going on, right? Because I think people are going to be.
I don't think it's about race, Tim. I think what Black women are saying, and this is a real conversation that Black women have, by the way, they feel that Black men respond differently in relationships when they're in relationship with women of other race, and not all Black men. And they feel that like they just totally step up the whole thing about being a leader, making sure they're taking care of the finances, managing things. Like they just step up the game a couple different levels because we feel like that world influences. Like you step up the game. And I'm just going to tell you, just from my perspective, being in corporate, I see it all the time. Like literally, I'm seeing this in real time. And I can tell you right now when I go into a corporate space, whether or not that Black man is married to a Black woman or a woman outside of his race. I know it instantly.
So let me say this. There's a rap lyric that says, it's cool when you do it, but it's a problem when I do it, right? So what I mean by that is I think this conversation it's been percolating for many years. Black women find it a problem when Black men are with a woman that's non-Black, right? But Black women don't find it a problem when they're with a man that's not Black, right? And so I think that is the bigger overarching issue. You can frown if you want to, but similar to you,
I have nothing to say. I'm a product of that situation.
And a lot of times,
I'm in these same corporate worlds as you, and I see it as well. So I can easily also say,
let's just know this. I'm not one of those Black women. I don't care who you're with.
I'm not saying you're not, Christine, but I'm teasing you. But I can also say, to your point, to agree, I can also, when I go in these meetings and I'm traveling and speaking, when I meet a Black woman, I can tell if she's married to a man that's not Black just by the way she moves and her articulation. Do you think we do change up when we are with people outside of our race? Do we step our game up? I think there is a percentage of Black men and Black women who do change and modify the way that they are in their being. But I'm not going to say it's a blanket statement for all. But
are you really changing if you went outside of your race? Are you really changing because you got with somebody who compliments you and has the same making of you? Are you really changing? Maybe you was with a person Black that just happened to be one that wasn't compatible to what you are. You know what I mean? And maybe if you go to a white lady right there, whatever, and y'all might like to watch Seinfeld together, do whatever people do, whatever it could be, different region. Might have a lot more in common.
Well, and to add
now,
on to that,
RJ, before you respond, let me just say this: I'm not white, Tim, but I like Seinfeld.
well, listen.
Okay. A lot of people in the
Let
world.
me jump in
do
after
too.
RJ on this.
You got reruns on, so it's
Hold
still
on, Greg.
good.
I'm just picking with him. Go ahead, Gaylon. Go ahead, Gaylon.
After I say this, just to add to what Tim just said, it could simply be that some black men and some black women modify or become different, or I would say maybe better, because the individual they're with may bring something better out in who the person that they are, right? May enhance
Thank you for saying that.
that's within them, so that they are different with that other race of a man or a woman, and that's not a bad thing. But we unfortunately look at it as a bad thing. Sorry, go ahead, Rep.
Okay. I think it's a couple of things, because obviously this is a conversation around black women and black men dating outside of race. I think the first thing comes into play that I thought of is freedom to choose. Everybody wants to make choices for you, and you can't live your life based upon the opinions of others especially when your happiness is at stake. That's one. Two, some people, depending on, and I'm using this, black men are in environments that when they connect with other cultures, gives them a different perspective on life. And, everybody in Black America is not coming from the Heathcliff Huxtable lifestyle. So, and I've seen this in real time where, a brother, has had more of a rougher upbringing, and some of the sisters passed them by. Let's just keep it real. Like literally,
that's real.
No time of the day. Gets with a culture that has structure, family that looks out for each other, people help you get the job, people, fast track you through to get where you need to be so you can be with their person. They see the structure, they see the outline, and in that environment, they prosper. Now you see them at the local concert, and you're like, this put together dude is with this white woman and not even understanding the whole context of the conversation. All right. And so when you start talking about environment, sometimes that's a real issue. Third, there's some black guys that get with women from outside the race because they want those women to be submissive. And, so when now, on the internet, they call them passport bros, where guys go to other countries, they either date, have sex, or bring those women back because those women are raised in a different culture and that they don't feel as though they're as combative. I'm not saying that's true or not.
Right.
It's true in some aspects, as combative in relationships. So it's easier to develop the roles that they desire. Okay. And then there's the final thing that really is the real conversation. Like the percentage of black women who only want to date black men is like high 80s. Whereas black men, when you poll black men and say, would you only date black women or date outside your race, it's lower than 50%. So if you have potentially 50% out of all of Black America that wants to date only black men, and black men are exercising our options, you're going to bump into real problems because it's in the marketplace of dating.
Right.
You have the same large amount of women trying to get the same small amount of guys. And that's why you end up seeing a side chick culture, a hookup culture, a sugar daddy culture, and all these other things that go along with that, because some of these women rather share a good dude, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong, I'm talking about real life here,
you're right,
versus deal with the people that are not necessarily holistic for their well-being. This is happening every day. In real time. Overwhelmingly want to be with black men. Black men are saying, I got options and I'm going to exercise them.
And we also got to add some true data to it. Women outnumber men 12-1.
Oh yeah.
That's the other problem. Yeah. Right. So for it's 12 women per man.
Archie, does that apply to me though?
Oh my goodness, Christine!
Don't make it about you, Christine. Don't make it about you.
It's not about you, Christine Burkett. Okay.
I just want to say, folks, those odds don't impact me because I don't know. I'm Christine. Those odds don't impact
you do things a little bit differently.
I do a little bit different. Okay, so real quick, and Rev, you're right on point. Wendy said, looking good, love, Tim.
I'm gonna start wearing t-shirts, Tim.
Empress said hello.
No, I'm trying to white people, the black ones.
I'm thinking
Exactly.
about that. RJ said, I like that. That's nice, man, with the red thing.
Empress said, don't find it a problem. Chantopi said, very true, RJ. Empress also said, why do you feel it upsets black women to see a black man with a white woman? Empress, because it does. If you're not a black woman, maybe you don't understand that, but it does. And most black women get very annoyed by it. So if you're not a black woman, you wouldn't understand. But we also have, she said, very nice, and she said, very true, Rev. So the thing is, folks, this is just like a real conversation. As a person who is of multiple races, I don't have an issue with whomever anybody dates. But I will say this, that RJ, you're right. There is a difference in the numbers far as women versus men. And I've dated outside of my race a couple times. And I don't have an issue with it. I mean, men of all races always pursue me. That's why I said I don't see the shortage, because I just don't. Like, it doesn't impact me. So I kind of think you just need to take an open perspective about what you're looking at.
Christine, I'm going to jump in because what you might not be paying attention is still the percentages. Okay?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Highly educated.
Yeah.
CEO of her own company.
Yeah.
Exceptional gift of gab that can walk in almost any room and negotiate contracts, business, this, that, and the other. Multiple background in various different fields of work. All right.
Yeah.
So now you're dealing with a percentage, because a brother that's been dragging women along to take care of them, if you could cook, you might be the breath of fresh air.
Speak on it, Rev.
I'm just joking about the cooking part.
No, look, I was going to say, RJ, Matt's not here, and seriously, Rev,
it was just so there already. But
Matt is here through the Rev tonight.
but my point is it's hard out there to make a living for a lot of people.
It is.
And when you're a man, Chris Rock had a joke, and he said, only women and children are loved unconditionally. Mm-hmm. A man is loved for what he does. Mm-hmm. All right.
He's loved on the condition for that he does something.
Correct. Therefore,
the condition.
Yeah. Right. So if there's a situation where a man doesn't feel as though that his earning power is enough to be able to handle what he needs to handle, a woman that can really help alleviate that process is a godsend. Right. Now, so you say, well, it's not a shortage for me, but but you move and navigate through life at a different level.
Yeah.
So it looks different. So a guy approaching you doesn't have to think, man, how am I going to be able to take care of her? And she fancy. Can I even support this lifestyle? It's not even an issue. All right.
Yeah.
If I want to live in a better neighborhood, we can do this together.
Right.
Okay. You know, believe it or not, what guys will talk about at times is guys who are just getting with women because they're pretty and they bring nothing else to the table. Mm-hmm. Like nothing.
That's a whole podcast.
That's a whole podcast.
Yeah.
That's the next podcast. Actually, that should be the next podcast.
but Rev, like you said, like you were saying, the CEO woman, white, green, red, whatever color they is or whatever, they're gonna naturally be alphas. Mm-hmm. But a real man, I say now, everybody who peace stand up just is not a real man. Probably haven't did one man thing that day. A real man, a woman is going to feel that strength and vibe from him, and then know that this what this man's about. Because me personally myself, I don't care if you're a CEO, UTFO, or whatever. If I call you
UTFO, that's the rap group.
If I call you and tell you I'm on the way home, be butt naked, put some chicken wings on. You can call it submissive or whatever the hell you want to call it, but make sure it's there when I get there.
You know what, Tim? I was gonna say, what's your closing remarks about being submissive?
Man.
But you answered that
He said
question.
UTFO. I was like,
Yeah.
you know, Roxanne.
Roxanne.
Oh, Tim is funny.
Oh my God, why?
I saw them in concert when I was a kid.
I know. Can't go kid. What's this shit?
Yeah.
All I gotta say is, Thursdays to me, you guys make my day. And today has been a pretty tough day, but I'm gonna say I love laughing with you guys. So, in closing, in our last 5 minutes, if you guys had anything to say to a woman or a man about the word submissive and the role that it plays in a relationship, whether it should be in or out, what would you say to them? RJ, I'm gonna start with you.
I'll say remove the word submissive. We need to get beyond that word. It has negative connotations for a lot of people. So for me, I'm just gonna reiterate, like, the key is the overall achievement of the team. That team being your family, your relationship, and everything that encompasses. So whatever you need to do to make sure you win, and whatever he or she needs to do to make sure you win, is what's important. It's not about me being more submissive, her being more submissive, us being submissive. That, like, the submissive thing needs to go out the window. It's just about being respectful, being accountable, being understanding, and being forgiving. Because in any relationship, you're going to need all those things to flourish, and being able to trust who you're with, being able to trust that individual is going to handle the things they say they're going to handle, do the things they say they're going to do, and vice versa, that you can depend on that and not have to worry about whether or not they did it or not. So for me, that's really what it boils down to. And I love what the Rev said, the idea that it's about the team winning. Like, that right there is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's just where it's at.
That's where it's at. Tim, what about you?
I just think that you should, if you try to find you somebody who makes you feel like how you like to be treated, it doesn't really matter what race, submissive, or none of that stuff. I think equally in return, you got to give to get, and what you're giving out is pretty much going to be sometime returned to you in that favor, and that those are things that people need to be looking for in. And it's not really submissive, because if you call me and tell me throw the clothes in the dryer, take them out the dryer, you forgot something, I don't really feel like I'm doing anything submissive or whatever. You're the boss of me or nothing, you know. So like I said, at the end of the day, it's all about treating people how you want to be treated, and you know, knowing your role. Sometimes you're on the bottom, sometimes you're on the top.
I like that. Well, Gaylon, you got it.
Well, the guys have knocked it out, so I'm gonna go in a different direction, because they
Well, at the bottom and the top.
Yeah, they knocked it out the park. So
Okay.
I don't want to add to anything that they've already said. I mean, I don't want to restate anything they've already said. So for me, when it all boils down to it, again, I'm not, to submit to I'm bringing it up now, submit to the concept of winning. Look at life from the perspective of, I meet no one but me. That was one of the shows I did on my podcast. If you all haven't seen it, make sure you check it out, because you have to know how you're entering a relationship with and what you're really seeking to get out of it.
Right.
There's some people who want to be in submissive relationships because they don't want the responsibility of life.
Right.
All right. There's some people who are natural leaders and that tend to be more dominant. But being a natural leader and dominant does not mean that means you have to suppress your space. A true leader lifts those up that are around them.
Yep.
Okay. So if you look at it from the standpoint of leadership, okay, how do I show up as a leader in the role? How do I show up as a protector in the role? I'm looking at it from a male perspective now.
Yeah.
How do I look at it as a provider in the role, even if she makes more money? How do I show up in a way that makes the people feel safe and secure in the role? Because if you set those precedents, if you have that type of energy, here's what nobody talks about. People will willingly follow you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How do I know this? The church world is 90% volunteerism.
Yeah.
And I've been on planes in multiple countries and states around in multiple states and countries. and I've seen the same thing. Good leaders
Mm-hmm.
draw people that want to align with their vision.
Mm-hmm.
Poor leaders run people away.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to, so if you're at a 5, you can
Mm-hmm.
only leave 1 through 4.
Mm-hmm.
If you bump into that woman or that man, I'm looking at it from a male perspective, you look into that woman that's a 7, there is no leading her. You're a 5.
Right.
So if you want to have a bigger influence on things, you have to get better. You have to grow.
Right.
You have to expand. So the person that entered the relationship should not be the same person 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later. How are you growing as a person? How are you growing as a leader? How are you growing in your roles? Because when you set the precedent of leadership, support, and provision, people will lovingly
Mm-hmm.
get in alignment with their vision because they can trust you not to abuse your leadership. And all over the world, in politics, in religion, in families, in business, we see the abuse of leadership. It's no wonder why people don't want to be vulnerable, because when vulnerability is misused, it creates pain.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's all I have to say about that.
Gaylon, you were right on point. And folks, I can only say to you that you really need to kind of look at where you are. And again, you need to watch Gaylon's podcast. We did a replay of it last week where you meet no one but you, like me, yourself. So you need to watch that. If you're wondering why you keep running into these problems in relationships where you're not finding the thing that you're looking for. And for me, I don't find issues because I go in uniquely me and I say exactly what I want. And I mean, that's what I want. And when I don't get it, then I just depart, because I'm not going to keep going through a major conversation. And one more important thing, if a man comes through the door with this whole glamorization about what he wants and it falls under submissive, may it be man or woman, and that's not your thing, you're not going to change them. They're telling you who they are. Walk away. Don't try to change them. Just walk away and uniquely focus on what it is that you want. Okay. So again, folks, as RJ said, we need to remove the word submissive. And like Tim said, everybody has a role, but it's all a team because all he wants to do is win. It's about a winning situation. And like Gaylon said, if you go ahead and take that approach where everybody's working together for the common good, that word submissive has nothing to do with your relationship. Focus on that. So all I can say is you just had real talk from the men. They already told you. And all of these guys are all alphas. So the alphas are telling you, y'all better bark up and get it under control. And men, if you're not an alpha, like these brothers here, I don't know what to say. You're not going to have a woman that's going to follow you, like Rev just said. Poor leadership. That's what it's about. So guys, we'll see you back here next week. And what are we talking about next week, RJ? Women, the passport women? That's what we doing? We doing passport?
That's passport bros. That's what we call it.
We got our podcast
go
next
to
week.
other countries.
That's what we're talking about.
We're gonna
speak
the topic for next week. Let's get in the group chat and talk about it.
I'm about to go ahead and put that promo together. Passport bros. All right, guys. We'll see you guys next week, and thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like and share our podcast. We would love to see you every week. Next week will be our last live. We're going on vacation for April. We're going on spring break, folks, so you better catch us next week, because other than that, you're going to see replays for the month of April. We'll be right back the first week in May with live broadcasts, but we need a spring break like everybody else, so we're taking the whole month off. So, guys, thanks again for joining us here tonight. Be sure to like, share our podcast with everyone else. Have a good night.